Hello YouTube, welcome to another Pre-Season 7 Assassin Rework Guide. Today, we're covering Jungle Rengar.
Tonight, we hunt!
For more of my content, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/egamingtv or on Twitter at egaming_TV. All of the links for my social medias and the timestamps for this guide will be down in the video description, so make sure you check that out. I do Riot Point giveaways at the end of every month on my Twitter, as well as a poll each night on which champion I should cover the next day. So, if you're interested in entering those Riot Point giveaways, or you want to vote on which champion guide should be next, make sure you head over to Twitter. So, with that out of the way, let's hop right into our Rengar guide with our pros and cons. Rengar is a manaless jungler with very high burst damage. With all the AoE in his reworked kit, he can really get through that jungle quickly. He's also very effective at clearing through the jungle, and he's probably one of the best junglers in this new jungle. At least clear-wise, that is. He's got very high mobility, and when you combo it with the camouflage he gets from his ultimate, he does have pretty damn solid ganks. With that camouflage, high mobility, and very high damage, he does have a very strong snowball potential. Kills on champions also give him bonus AD on his Bone Tooth necklace, and the more he grabs, the stronger it gets. So as for the cons, Rengar's kit now is very skill shot reliant. His Bola Strike and Savagery aren't that hard to hit, but if you do miss them, you're going to lose a lot of your damage. He's also got a rather high skill cap now, and he's got mediocre teamfight ability. Since he is an assassin, he is rather squishy unless we go for a tanky build, and you really have to pay attention to crowd controls, and you need to get onto the right targets at the right time. For our masteries, we go 12 Ferocity and 18 Cunning, grabbing Thunderlord's Decree as our keystone mastery. Rengar is one of the few champions that makes great use out of Greenfather's Gift, since you do get bonus damage when you come out of a bush, and Rengar pretty much always comes out of a bush, so make sure you pick that up. If you are somebody that likes to go for an attack speed / crit build, then Fervor of Battle is a pretty decent option as well, but I don't really like that build myself. I prefer either a Lethality Armor Pen Assassin build or a tanky build. For my runes, I go 9 Lethality Reds, 9 Armor Yellows, 9 Cooldown Reduction Blues, 1 Cooldown Reduction Quint, and 2 Attack Damage Quints. In both our Assassin and Tanky Bruiser build, we will be picking up 30% CDR, and this will be giving us that extra 10%. That 10% in the early game is a great way to increase our damage as well. But other than that, we get the Lethality Reds and Attack Damage Quints to increase our damage and that armor so we take less damage in the jungle. For our Summoner spells, Smite is our first required one as a jungler. It will keep you sustained through the jungle and allow you to clear through the whole thing. It's then also great for securing dragons and barons, and the offensive smite is a great way to either increase your damage or make your ganks more effective. That of course depends if you took either the stalkers or the skirmishers. Flash is then the summoner spell we want to grab second. It's a great escape tool if we get caught in a bad position, and it's also excellent used offensively to help chase a low health enemy. Don't take anything besides smite and flash. Now let's kick off our abilities with our passive, Unseen Predator. So this first big chunk of text here basically just says whenever you are in brush or stealth, your next basic attack will leap to the target. This then also generates 1 ferocity. This, as well as whenever you cast a basic ability, generates 1 ferocity. Whenever you reach 4, your next ability will be empowered and can be cast independently of its basic version cooldown. When you do this, you are also granted between 30 and 50% bonus movement speed for 1.5 seconds. We'll be talking about those empowered versions on the respective ability pages. First though, let's look at the second part of your passive, Bone Tooth Necklace. Rengar gains a trophy whenever a champion he damaged in the previous second dies. Rengar can only gain 1 trophy per enemy champion up to 5, with an additional trophy made available upon the event the hunt is on. This is of course if there is a Kha'Zix in the game and you do take his head. So as you can see below here, this gives bonus attack damage whenever you get a trophy, and it does scale nicely, and hopefully you're going to be against a Kha'Zix because you can take his head and get 42% bonus AD in total. Now let's move on to our Q, Savagery. Rengar slashes all enemies in an arc in the target direction before piercing all enemies in a line, dealing physical damage per strike. The empowered version has a 240% bonus AD ratio, which is absolutely crazy. If Rengar's cursor is outside Savagery's maximum range when he inputs the target direction, he will dash forward a short distance during the piercing strike, as well as extending its range by the same amount. So this is your main ability, and we do want to max it first, and it's also the one you want to empower the most often when you have 4 stacks from your passive. By far your best ability, and now that it is an AoE skill shot, it's also really strong at clearing through the jungle, considering it does a lot of damage. Now let's move on to your W, Battle Roar. For its passive, Rengar stores 50% of the damage he's taken in the last 1.5 seconds as Grey Health. When he activates it, Rengar lets out a Battle Roar, dealing magic damage to nearby enemies and healing Rengar for his Grey Health. The Empowered Active does more base damage and will remove all active crowd control effects, as well as granting him crowd control immunity for 1.5 seconds in addition to its normal heal. So the normal version is decent in the jungle, it's just a great way to keep sustained and do some nice AoE damage. The Empowered Active is pretty damn strong as well, and if we do get CC'd in the middle of a team fight, it's definitely worth using. It doesn't do anywhere near the damage of an Empowered Q, so unless you do need to break this CC, then save your Empowered version for your Q. Now let's look at that last basic ability, our E, Bola Strike. Rengar throws a bola in the target direction, dealing physical damage to the first enemy hit and slowing them for 1.75 seconds. The Empowered version will do more base physical damage and instead root its target for 1.75 seconds. So it's a decent Empowered Active, but yet again, not as good as your Q. The Empower still has its uses though. It's still great in ganks if you do need to root a target instead of a slow, so your team can follow up. Same goes for if you're in a longer engagement and you need to root somebody so your teammates can get there. The normal version's also pretty great as well. When you are going in for a gank, applying a slow is a great way for your team to follow up and do damage. Now we arrive at our ultimate, Thrill of the Hunt. Rengar channels his predatory instincts, becoming camouflaged after 2 seconds, gaining unit vision of the nearest enemy champion, who he then can leap to for a guaranteed critical strike. While he's camouflaged, Rengar gains bonus movement speed, which is up to 45%. Of course, if you do attack or cast most spells, it will end Thrill of the Hunt. So now that this is a camouflage, it acts more like an Eve passive. If you sit around people while you are in camouflage, they will be able to see you, but this is not what you're going to be doing as a Rengar. Stay at a decent range from the enemy champion, and when you see your opportunity, leap onto them with your passive. Now that it lasts 30 seconds at max level, you can sit in camouflage for a relatively long time, wait for your opportunity to strike. This ultimate still makes you a really strong ganker because you can still gank from down lane, it doesn't really matter too much. For our skill order, we first want to get a point into our ultimate whenever we can at 6, 11, and 16. Then we focus on maxing our Q because it does a lot of AoE damage and it's great in the jungle and in ganks. Then we focus on maxing our E because it also has an AD ratio and the slow is really strong in ganks. Then we save our W for last. The heal is decent, but we're not going for an AP build, we only need one early point just to have some extra sustain and AoE damage. If you're going for a cheesy level 2 red gank, then you want to take your bola at level 2 instead of your heal, just to make sure you can slow the enemy champion. For our combos, we only really have one main one, and it's our post level 6 all in. We first want to use our Thrill of the Hunt to go into camouflage and activate our Youmuu's Ghost Blade for the movement speed. Then we want to jump onto the target with our passive and cast our Bola Strike in mid-air. As soon as we land, we want to activate our Tiamat and our Battle Roar to do a nice chunk of damage. At this point, if the enemy is even still alive, then we want to hit the enemy with our Savagery. At this point, we will be able to empower an ability, so if we do need to do more damage, we can use our Q, if we need to break a CC, use our W, and if we want to snare a target, then use our E. Now, if you did buy an Edge of Night, you can use it at the very beginning of the combo before you go into stealth, so you will have a spell shield when you jump onto the enemy. Rengar is a champion who really excels in the new jungle. You can basically start wherever you want and clear them in whatever order you want since you have very strong AoE in your kit from your Savagery and your Battle Roar. Invading is also an option since your jungle clear is so strong, so if you are against a jungler you can easily invade, then go for it. Taking red buff and then ganking a lane at level 2 can be very effective, but just make sure you take your Bola Strike at level 2 if you are going for an early gank. Rengar has some very strong ganks since he can come from river, lane, or behind the enemy with his Thrill of the Hunt. You have to be very careful now because Thrill of the Hunt is now classed as a camouflage and acts like Evelyn's passive. That means if you get too close to the enemy and you don't actually want to leap, well then they're going to see you. Sweeping in from behind is usually the most effective way to get onto the enemy, but you can still run down the lane if you stay away from the enemy. Once you leap to the enemy, well then all you have to do is land your skill shots for a rather easy kill. Rengar is a decent team fighter, but he's definitely not the best out there. You have to be very careful at the start because your goal is to get onto a squishy target in the backline and avoid crowd controls. If you engage too early, well then you're just going to be CC'd and die pretty damn quick. As I've said, your Thrill of the Hunt now lasts 30 seconds at max level, so be patient. Pay attention to the crowd controls on the enemy team and look for a squishy target on its own that you can delete. You'll want to try to sweep in from behind the enemy team and pull off your all-in combo to easily dispose of an enemy carry. Then, all you have to do is help your team deal with the rest of the enemy team. Now let's cover a few hard matchups, starting with Kha'Zix. Now Kha'Zix is not a counter or anything, he is a skill matchup, but a very good Kha'Zix player is hard to deal with. Try to avoid fighting him when you are isolated because his damage is very hard to deal with when this is the case. You only really want to 1v1 him if you can engage from your Thrill of the Hunt, and don't die to him because if he gets to evolve all 4 of his abilities, he becomes a much harder champion to deal with. Zac is then a tanky champion with very unpredictable ganks and engages, so it's hard for you to keep track of him. He also makes great use of the Colossal Keystone and therefore is even tankier than he was before. Spend most of your time ganking his team, don't try to fight Zac 1v1 because it's usually a waste of your time, he'll just jump out. Last here is Skarner, and he's a really strong anti-assassin because if you jump into one of his carries, he's going to impale you and get you killed instead. Also, make sure you don't fight him in his crystal zone because he gets even stronger than he was before. Try to keep vision on him so you know when it's safe to gank a lane, you don't want to have him sweep in and impale you into a tower. Alright, now let's cover the last part, the item build. So first you're going to want to start with a Hunter's Machete, refillable potion, and a warding totem. For your boot options, you first have Ionians if you need 10% CDR, Boots and Mobility if you are ganking very often, and Merc Treads if you do need to break out of CCs, or you just want some extra magic resist. For your carry core items, we start with a Skirmisher Saber enchanted with Warrior, then a Youmuu's Ghostblade, and a Duskblade. If I'm going for a high damage build, I usually opt for the Skirmishers because it does add some nice extra damage with your offensive smite. We grab the Youmuu's because it does have 10% CDR, a bunch of attack damage, and the active is really nice for its added mobility. It even has some lethality and some out-of-combat movement speed, making our ganks even more effective. Duskblade is great for the exact same reasons, but that Night Stalker passive is really solid as well because when we come out of stealth, our next basic attack does even more damage. Same for if we jump out of bushes, it's whenever we are out of sight for at least 1 second. For our Bruiser core items, we instead take Stalkers enchanted with Warrior, a Titanic Hydra, and a Black Cleaver. This will already CDR cap us with our runes, give us a really nice health pool, and be able to shred armor. For our damage item pool, Ravenous Hydra is great on an assassin because that activate can add some nice damage in our burst combo. Infinity Edge will also be a great item now as well because the next attack out of your ultimate will be a 100% critical strike chance, and this increases that damage. If you want to go for a crit build, then you could go for a Static Shiv or a Phantom Dancer, but this is not something I like to do. If we need a bunch of armor penetration, then LDR is a great item to do that and get more attack damage at the same time. Since its cooldowns are short, Trinity Force is a pretty strong item as well because it can make great use of the Spellblade passive. If we then wanted some lifesteal and 10% CDR, Death's Dance is a pretty decent item as well. For our tanky item pool, Edge of Night is a very solid item. It gives us a spell shield and some magic resist, really increasing our survivability. Sterak's Gauge and Maw are also great items because they also provide shields, but it is when we take a certain amount of damage. Just make sure you don't take both because they don't stack. Guardian Angel is then a solid item as well. It does give us some magic resist and armor, and we can also come back to life in the later stages of the game. Deadman's Plate is definitely my favorite armor item because it increases our health pool, gives us some much needed armor, and increases our mobility at the same time. Spirit Visage and Banshee's Veil are great magic resist items. I do prefer Banshee's Veil here because if we are engaging onto the enemy team, the spell shield is really nice, but honestly you may as well get the Edge of Night instead at this point. For our carry full build, we take our core, get Aeonian Boots to CDR cap us, then the Ravenous Hydra to do in our combo for some extra damage, and the LDR to get through any armor. We will do an absolute ton of damage, and as long as we can get onto squishies, we can 100-0 them easily. For our Bruiser full build, we take our core, take the Merc Tread since we're already CDR capped, then a Sterak's Gauge to give us a nice shield and some more damage, and then a Guardian Angel. We won't do anywhere near as much damage, but we will be a hell of a lot more durable, and we can actually be in the middle of a team fight with this build. This is definitely a build I would recommend for somebody learning Rengar, because it's kinda hard to get used to flanking and using your ultimate properly. But that, ladies and gentlemen, covers everything I've got on the reworked Jungle Rengar. Don't forget, if you guys do want to check out more of my content, check out the social medias down below in the video description. If you guys did enjoy the video, please make sure you thumb it up, and if you are new here, you could also subscribe. But that's basically all I've got to say. Thank you guys a ton for watching the guide. For any of you that do watch Walking Dead, there is a new episode tonight, and it is extended, so make sure you enjoy that, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.